Okay, we're going to look at hyperbolas today. You will need your conic sections flip book, and we'll be working in the last column of that. Here are the 5 vocab words that go on the important information tab. So go ahead and pause the video and get these 5 vocab words written down. Our next tab is the x minus h quantity squared over a squared minus y minus k quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. Now on the top of this tab is where we're going to put the picture that goes along with this. And when we start that, we are going to start with our center, which is at h comma k, just like it has been for all of our other conic sections. And then when we move to the right a units, we're going to find one of our vertices. We also have to move to the left a units, and that's going to be our other vertice. Now B, from our center, we are going to go up B units, and then we would go down B units also. And these are going to be special points that a class a couple years ago named Kevin. So if you hear me talk about the special points, that's what these points are. Now when we get all these points, what you're going to do is you are going to draw a rectangle that has the vertices and those Kevin points as the midpoints of the sides. This rectangle isn't actually part of our graph, but we use it as a guideline, because if you go through the corners and draw the diagonals of this rectangle, you are going to get the asymptotes for our hyperbola that we're going to be drawing. And notice your asymptotes should also go right through the center. Once you get your asymptotes drawn in there, to actually get your hyperbola, you need to come back to your vertices. Once you come back here to your vertices, you're going to sketch your hyperbola so that it comes along and that it gets close to your asymptotes, but it doesn't actually touch them. So the blue is actually our hyperbola, but we need all the rest of that information to get our actual graph. And one point that I see I left off is the focus. So our focus is kind of similar to like with a parabola. It's going to be on the inside of each of these branches, and to find your focus you go from the center and you go C units to the right and to the left to find your focus, and you will have 2 of those. So that's what your picture should look like for this first one. Now we're going to go back and look at the important information that goes along with these. Our center is at h comma k, but you have to remember to use the opposite of both those. The length of the transverse axis. Well, if you go back and look at your definition of the transverse axis, it's the line segment joining the vertices. So when I come back here and I look at the line segment joining the vertices, that's this line segment right here. Look at that length. It's going to be 2a. So the length of our transverse axis is 2a. Then our vertices, if you look at your picture, to get to our vertices, we change our x values. So we're going to do h plus a, but our y value stays the same, so it's h plus a comma k. And our second one is at h minus a comma k. And to get to our focus, we're going to have an equation here first, and that is c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So this one is slightly different than what we had for the ellipse, because with an ellipse we had a minus sign, but with the hyperbolas we have a plus sign. And then once you have that figured out, your focus comes by taking your x value and adding c. K stays the same, and then also taking that x value and subtracting c, and k stays the same, which you can see that from the picture. And then those special points, we have to change our y value. So now our x value is going to stay the same, and we have to add and subtract b from our y values in order to get those special points. So that's all of the information for that first set of equations there. Okay, on this second equation, it's going to follow a similar type of process, only it's going to be turned on edge. So we still start at h comma k, and our vertices now are going to be above and below our center as opposed to the right and the left. Now, when we get to our vertices, we still move a units up and down. Then our special points, those Kevin points, are going to be to the right and to the left instead of up and down. And to get to those, we still move B units. We're still going to sketch in that rectangle, and then you're going to use the diagonals to draw your asymptotes. And remember, that should also go right through the center. Okay, once you get those asymptotes drawn, you still need to find both of your focus points, and those are going to be above and below. And again, you have to move out those C units. And then to actually get your hyperbola, you sketch those in so that they approach the asymptotes but don't touch it. And then you might want to draw it down on this picture that your c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. We'll write that down on the next sheet also. So that's what our picture looks like for the last equations for the hyperbolas. And remember, this equation is when the y squared is first. Okay, so our information, our formulas that go along with this, our center is still h comma k, and remember, use the opposite of both. And then the length of our transverse axis still is going to be 2a. A always goes with your transverse axis. Our vertices are slightly different than on the last equation. Here, our x value stays the same, so h is going to be just h, and then we're going to have k plus a, and then to get your other vertice, you would have h comma k minus a. Your focus. Remember, the c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared on this one, and our actual focus points are h comma k plus c and h comma k minus c. And then to get those special points, we need to do h plus b comma k and h minus b comma k. So those are the formulas that we're going to be using when working with our hyperbolas. Okay, here's our first practice problem. Find all the important information for the hyperbola with the given equation. So we've got this hyperbola. It's set equal to 1, so we already have it in standard form. There's no numbers out here in front of the sets of parentheses, so we're good to go on that. So all we need to do is decide which formula it follows. And remember, with hyperbolas, you look at what variable comes first in the subtraction problem. And in this case, the x comes first, so we're going to be using the formula that is x minus h quantity squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared is equal to 1, because that's the formula that has the x first. So a couple of things that we're going to go do is we're just going to identify what's our a, h, a, b, and c. Well, let's start with our h. Remember, h is the number that's being added or subtracted with your x, but we have to take the opposite of it, so since it's minus 3, our h would be a positive 3. Our k is the number being added or subtracted with your y. That would be the 2, but we need the opposite of it, so that would be negative 2. Now, our a and our b. A is always the denominator of our first fraction, but it's a squared. So we have to square root both sides in order to get a. So we end up getting a is equal to 5. And then the b goes with the denominator of our second fraction, but remember it's b squared. Square root both sides, and we get b to be equal to the square root of 10. From there, we can just plug in our values to find our important information. So our center is at h comma k, so it's 3 comma negative 2. Our Length of our transverse axis is going to be 2 times a, so 2 times 5 is 10. Our vertices is h plus a, so I'm going to have 3 plus 5, which gives me an 8, and then the k just stays k. Then I also have to do h minus a, so 3 minus 5 gives me a negative 2. And our foci. Our foci are at h plus c, so I have to take 3 plus, well, I haven't found my c yet, but I know that c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Well, a squared gives me 25, b squared would give me 10, so that tells me that c squared is equal to 35, which means c is the square root of 35. So I would have 3 plus the square root of 35, comma, my k stays, so that would be at negative 2. And then I also have to do the h minus c, so I would have 3 minus the square root of 35, comma, negative 2 for both my focus points. And then my special points, I need to do h, which is 3, and then I need to do k plus b, so I would end up having negative 2 plus the square root of 10, and I need to do the subtraction part of that also, so it would be minus the square root of 10. Those would be all of our relevant pieces, and if we were graphing, we would actually change these square roots into decimals so that we could actually do the counting, but since it just wanted us to identify the points, leave them as square roots.